Hello you guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Anina and I've got my tea, I've got my comfy set on. I thought it would be the perfect time to talk about my favorite books of 2021. I've been in such a reading mood lately. I think because it has been so freaking cold here. It's been beyond freezing and I just don't want to leave my house and I just want to drink tea and be comfy all the time, so that really leads me to read, but it's not a bad thing. Yes, I made a little list of all of my favorite books that I read this past year. If you don't have a Goodreads account, I would highly recommend it. That's where I keep track of everything that I read. That's where I rate everything. Honestly, if I didn't use Goodreads, I don't think I would ever remember anything that I read, which is awful, but it's also good. It lets you set like a yearly reading challenge. That like really helps me stay on track. I would say I was feeling kind of like in a reading rut last year in the sense that I just didn't know what to read. I think in 2020 I reread all of the Harry Potter books and I was just like obsessed with them, and that kind of like made me spiral and feel like I had nothing else to read. So in 2021 I read a lot of really popular books. I read a lot of like BookTok books, the ones that everyone is always posting about on TikTok. I kind of just relied on like what was popular and what people were talking about, because I just like didn't know what to read. But that's not a bad thing because new books and popular books can still be good, of course, and I ended up loving a lot of them, so I'm here to talk about them. I have my Kindle. I don't have any of the physical books. I would love to like show them and talk about them, but I don't really buy books. I read almost everything on my Kindle, or I get books from the library. If you have an e-reader, you have to download the Libby app. If you don't have it already, it's you get free books. It's like a library for ebooks. You just connect your library card and it connects you to your local library, and you can download books to your e-reader. You get them for 3 weeks like you would a normal library book. So I highly recommend that, so you don't have to pay for books. It's amazing. So here we go. These aren't ranked in like my order of favorites. I just ranked them in the order that I read them. So yeah. First book that I read that is on my favorites list, that I gave 5 stars to, absolutely loved, is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I feel like Taylor Jenkins Reid was absolutely huge this year. These past couple of years, she put out some really, really good, strong books. Daisy Jones and the Six was one of my favorites. Something I really love about this author, if you haven't read any of her books, she also read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. She wrote it. She really plays around with form and she experiments with different styles and different forms of writing. And I think it's really unique and I really like what she does. So this book is about a band. It takes place in the 70s. It is told in almost documentary style. So you get the entire novel is like little pieces of dialogue from each of the characters. And at the end, it kind of wraps up a documentary of their story. So I thought that was so cool. I've never read anything like it. And the characters, I just loved them all so much. About this band, and they are gaining fame and they end up acquiring this new member, Daisy Jones, and she's like this like muse of a woman, and she's like enigmatic and everyone loves her, and it sort of tells the story of how she shakes up the band and like all the aftermath of it. It was super fun. I think it was inspired by like Fleetwood Mac, so if you're into them or their music, it's really fun to kind of draw those connections. I just loved it. The characters were all super complex and I loved how you got such a taste of all of them, and you got to hear like the same story from different perspectives, which was really great because she would show like how one person saw it versus how the other person saw it. So loved that. It was super fun. I was kind of sad when it was over. All right, my next book on the list is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I loved this one. This was like a thriller slash mystery that you kind of had to piece together, but still pretty fun. Not super dark. It was a little more lighthearted. The premise is that there is a wedding. These 2 characters are getting married on this remote, exclusive island in Ireland or Scotland, I believe. You basically start out the story and you learn that at the wedding someone gets murdered, like someone dies, and you go kind of back in time and you again hear all different characters' perspectives. Like each chapter is told from a different character and you have to piece together the story through these different lenses and then like figure out the mystery. This was so engaging and so fun. It was like super interactive how you had to sort of piece everything together, and the way that Lucy Foley just wrote it so well, where she tied every character's story together and they were sort of all intertwined in a way that you eventually figured out. And yeah, it was so good. It kept me on my toes. I didn't immediately guess the ending. She also wrote another book called The Hunting Party that I read after that, and it was a very similar premise. Basically the same like template, but it was about this group of friends from college who got together every year for like a reunion, and they went to this trip in this very, again, remote, like wooded area, and someone dies and you have to figure out how it happens and how their like stories all together. I liked that one too, but I think I liked the guest list more. It was really cool how she was able to weave everyone's stories together in a way that just made so much sense and was like kind of shocking. So if you are in need of like a fun sort of thriller, if you like mysteries, definitely read this. I recommend this to so many people. Hey, my next book, this one shocked me with how much I ended up loving it. This one is One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. I had heard about this for years. It's like a YA high school drama mystery, and that kind of threw me off because I was like, I don't know if I want to read about high schoolers, but I ended up loving it so much more than I thought I would. It's another mystery. I guess I was really like into the mysteries and thrillers this year, but kind of like Breakfast Club vibe. It's like Gossip Girl if it were a mystery. There's this gossip blog that this one kid in the school, he runs it, and it like airs all these secrets about people. And basically the initial premise is that these 5 kids randomly get put together in detention one day, and they feel like they're wrongfully put there. But they go to detention, and Simon, the one who runs the gossip blog, he has an allergic reaction and he dies. But after all the 4 of them, they like tried to help him and they couldn't. After that, the 4 of them get framed for the murder, and everyone kind of believes that the 4 of them were all in on it together to kill him because he ran this gossip blog. He knew everyone's secrets, and as it turns out, the rest of the kids have these really big secrets that they don't want to get out. This is another one you hear it from each character's perspective. Like every chapter is different perspective when you hear their story, and try not to give anything away. Just really good. These kids end up going through quite a lot together, and you're kind of always questioning like, who's guilty? Is this narrator guilty? Is this a reliable narrator? And it is in high school, and it follows like some high school drama, but it's just so good. It's so engaging. I couldn't put it down. I did figure out the ending somewhat early on, I'd say, but regardless, there were still so many like twists and turns and so many developments that I wanted to keep reading, and it really shocked me how much I loved it. There is a sequel. I started reading that shortly afterward, and I don't think I finished it. It was nowhere near as good. I don't think you need to read the sequel at all, but I loved the first one. They actually just made it into a TV show too, which I haven't watched yet, but I just really liked it. I think we need to like throw away our notions that high school or YA dramas are not good, because they really can be. Alright, my next book is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. People We Meet on Vacation is another one that like everyone puts on BookTok, everyone loves, but I really did love it. She was another huge author this year. She also wrote Beach Read. I actually haven't read yet. I really should though, but I know that one is huge. I feel like I read kind of a lot of these like popular books or even just like lighter romance novels this year, because it was one of those things where I was just like, I wanted to read but I didn't know what, and I felt like it was better to read something than nothing. But it's about a woman who, she's a travel blogger, which I love that obviously, and she has this best friend. He's her best friend like from college, and he travels with her like once every summer. They go on a vacation together, and there's definitely these like underlying feelings they have for each other, but they never really address it. And it's like a classic friends to lovers, like will they or won't they? But I think I just really liked it because first of all, they were traveling, and I thought that was really cool, but it also like went back and forth from the present day to like their history, and like every couple chapters you'd get a little bit from like when they first met or the first vacation they went on together, and you kind of learned about their trip in like a broken chronological order. Like in the present time, they had this problem where like they hadn't talked to each other in years, and you don't know what it is, but as you read about each vacation every year, you piece together the story and learn about what happened. But it was really cute. I love their relationship. The best friend, like the guy, I really love how he was written. He was definitely written like for the female gaze. He's just like this very sensitive, nerdy guy. He's a teacher. He's just a good guy. I don't often see that in romance novels, so he was just like, I was really rooting for them. I thought it was so cute and sweet, and it wasn't too like cheesy or forced, which I feel like can definitely happen in a lot of romance novels, so I really liked it. Give that one 5 stars. Alright, the next one. This one I don't think was as popular, but I think it was new this summer. It's called The Summer Job. It was written by Lizzie Dent, and I really liked the premise of this one. It was one of those stories where like the premise could be probably kind of cheesy or overplayed, but I really liked how it was written and how it developed. It's about this woman who is kind of like at a standstill in her life. She doesn't really have a good job. She's kind of like lost, not sure what to do with her life. And her best friend is a sommelier, like a wine expert. and her best friend gets this job for the summer where she has to go and like live in at this restaurant in Scotland and be their sommelier. And the friend ends up getting whisked away to Italy with her boyfriend and has to turn down the job. And the main character ends up taking the job and pretending to be her best friend and pretending to be a sommelier. And she gets there and she realizes it's this like super fancy, like 5-star, super high class restaurant. And she knows nothing about wine. She has no idea what she's doing. She also didn't tell her friend, so she couldn't even like rely on her for help. So she gets there and she has to learn what she's doing and like learn the ropes and just like live out this lie pretending to be her friend. But I really love how it develops. The main character herself is she's kind of quirky. She has a lot of like internal struggle that I think is super relatable. She has a lot of struggle, she has a lot of insecurities, and then there's also like a romance involved. One of the chefs at the restaurant, they kind of have a thing for each other. And she's like dealing with all these issues, trying to keep up the lie, like with her friend and with the people at the restaurant. And it's just so good. I just love how it plays out. It was another like unexpected favorite of mine. But yeah, I just liked it a lot. All right, the last book that I have down on my list is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. I think I've talked about this book in one of my vlogs before when I was reading it. This book, I was in a huge reading rut before I read it, and this book like sprung me right back into reading. So of course I would rate it high for that alone. But it's a thriller. Again, it's kind of a whodunit murder mystery. I love the idea of the plot. The premise is that the main character is a woman in her 30s who just lost her husband, and she's pretty like depressed. She's a therapist as well, and she has a niece who goes to her college that she met her husband at. She finds out that a college student at the school had been murdered, and she goes to the school to console her niece because it was one of her friends. Basically, like I said, this isn't a spoiler, like it's in the summary of the book. She becomes obsessed with the idea that this one specific professor murdered her. And this professor is like young and handsome, and he teaches Greek mythology, and he has this like cult of students from his class that's all girls, and they call themselves the Maidens. And this cult of girls who are obsessed with him, and they're like his special study group. And the main character is fully believing that he did it, but the murder gets placed on someone else. So she becomes obsessed with this case, obsessed with this professor, and trying to hold him accountable. I love the premise of this plot so much. I love anything that has to do with cults and that kind of thing, so that was really intriguing to me. Also the idea of this like rogue professor. I like how Greek mythology played a big part in the story as well. This author does that a lot. It was long and it was detailed, but I got through it really quickly. It was just so intriguing, and it never got boring, and there were just so many new developments and twists and turns. I will say I don't love the ending. There was a big twist at the end, and I could talk about the ending for a long time, but I don't want to spoil anything, so if you want a video on that, let me know and I will make it. But I loved it so much. I loved the premise of it, and it really got me back into reading, so I really appreciated that. So yes, I'm very excited to continue reading this year. My goal for this year is 25 books. I think I read 18 last year. But I'm reading my first book of the year right now, My Dark Vanessa. So good. I'm almost done with it. I also want to branch out more this year because I read a lot of like newer popular books last year. I really want to branch out and read some different genres and read some more classics. I think I have a list of some classics that I want to read. And yes, if you have any opposing opinions to these, please fight me in the comments because I love a good debate. But yes, thank you so much for watching, and make sure you are subscribed, and make sure you follow me at Anina's Diaries, and stay tuned for the next video. I post on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I have a lot of exciting new content coming up. So goodbye, happy reading, love you.